So, on the website component, which is Unit 3, there are 3 sections that you need to do. Section A, Section B, and Section C. Section A is completely written. It's about you doing an investigation, as you can see behind me, to understand the principles of how websites are developed and what makes a website effective. Now, you will be given a brief in class that guides you about the website that you need to make. But that's what you're writing about in that first section. How websites are made, what makes them effective. The second section, you're coming up with a design for the website that you're going to make. So it's all about the quality of that design. Have you drawn out on paper or wireframed up how that website's going to work? Bearing in mind the stuff that you've researched on part A about what makes a website effective, and you've built that into the design in part B. And then part C, it all comes together, you make that website. Now I'm going to look at with you how to make that website in a package called Dreamweaver, but part C is all about making that website. Part A. Now, part A is that written section where on this section you are explaining what makes a website effective. Now, usually the best way to do this is to find a set of websites that you can illustrate between things that are effective and things that are not effective on each of those particular website designs. But on this slide, you will see that you've got how it's being marked. So you're being marked for part 1 of, have you shown an adequate understanding of how a website's developed, and have you produced a site map for the site that you need to make? So what pages are going there, and does it match how many are in the brief? So if the brief asks for 5 pages, don't make 55 pages, make 5 pages, because that's what it's asked for. And then the merit section, you're writing in more detail and more depth on the principles that are on the far side. You've also got to the site map. And on the distinction section, what you're having to do there is comprehensively explain the client requirements. So it's about clarity around the client's requirements as well as what makes for a good website. And on the far side, what you can see is the sorts of issues that you need to cover when we are looking at websites in this particular way. So things like its layout, its branding, its design, how it's been navigated, what the difference is between a vertical navigation and a logical navigation and a hamburger bar, and that you've thought all that through in terms of website design, and that will flow on to part B, which is doing the design section. Part B of your website project comes really in 2 parts. The first part, which is you being very clear about what you're going to make, wireframes and structures and patterns about what you're making and why you're making it. And then the second part, the fact that you've actually done a collection of assets, a collection of the images and the things that you're going to include, and that you've shown good asset management. You've shown how those have all been put together in nice neat folders so that the whole thing comes together properly. So the first bit, let me run through before I do that, the grading. So if you've got adequate wireframes and you've got some asset management, a folder but not really neatly put together, that's a pass. If you've got effective wireframes and you've got your asset management together, that's a merit. If you've got very effective, comprehensive designs, that's a distinction. So really, the core bit of this is the quality of the design work itself, and have you done the wireframe, have you done the asset management rather properly. Now, in terms of the elements, what I want to see on your drawings are, have you got the sketches? Are the sketches there? Is it properly wireframed? Have you thought about your elements? Have you thought about your layout? Have you thought about your colour? Have you thought about your brand? Have you thought about your font? Have you thought how it's clear to a user? Have you explained, not just draw it, but have you explained why what's been drawn has been drawn? Why the things have been set out in the way that they are? And then on part B, What I'm wanting to see there is, have you got together the visual assets you're going to use, the images, the pictures? Have you got together any text that you're going to use? Have you got together a suitable naming set of conventions so you know what's going on page 1, what's going on page 2, what's going on page 3? Is it structured in a nice set of folder structure that really does explain the layout of those assets? Part C is the bit that draws everything together. Part C is the bit where you make your website. Now, you need to make it in a package that allows you to download the files, because the exam board will expect to see a fully packaged set of those files. Now, for us, we're going to make it inside Dreamweaver. Everything I demo is going to be about making it inside Dreamweaver. But fundamentally, the final product needs to have 3 parts to it. It needs to have the working website that matches your wireframes and matches the brief. It then needs a test plan, and it then needs some sort of evaluation or usability testing as well. So those are the 3 kind of parts, and really the first of those 3 by far the biggest. So let's look at how it's graded, and let's look at how and what you need to put in each of those 3 parts. So the first, in terms of the grading, number 1, have you made a website that partially meets the requirements? That's a pass. Have you made a website that meets most of the requirements? That's a merit. Have you made a website that comprehensively meets the requirements and does everything it's supposed to? That's a distinction. So really you're looking then at, does the website have the features and the tools in it that you'd expect to see? So I want the website made obviously as HTML files, but inside those are the menus, are the text, are the videos. Have you put forms in there? Do the colour schemes match? Do the text match? You've got some CSS there that controls all of that. So the HTML that's on the one and the CSS that's on the other. Have you got features like accordions or tabs or hovers or shopping carts, interactive maps, videos, that sort of list of stuff? Is it just website which is text and pictures, or is it website which is a little bit more than that? Now you need a little bit more than that to access those top grades. Now, in terms of the processes, have you explained your HTML code? So again in Dreamweaver will create your code for you. You need to show that HTML code. You could code it directly in HTML. I don't recommend you do that. That's a hard task to do. I'd use a tool like Dreamweaver to aid you with that process, but you need to have explained the HTML code. And then finally, in terms of your test plan and your evaluation, you need to have tested it, shown that the different links work, shown that the features that you're saying will work. You know, does the page look like it's supposed to look like? Does it do what you've said it's going to look like? Does it follow what's on the wireframe? So that's part of your functional testing. Does that element work? And then usability testing, you're looking at your navigation, you're looking at your accessibility, you're looking at the user experience, you're looking at the clarity of information, and you're commenting about all that. Does the website hang together in the way that you were wanting and hoping it would hang together? And how does it compare with the sorts of websites that you wrote about in part A and the drawings that you did in part B? This video is designed to help you with part C of the AAQ qualification, Unit 3, in designing a website. Now, the first thing that you're going to need to do as you set up that website is to build a set of resources. Now, really, you should have done this as part of the end of B. So part B has 2 parts to it. One, doing the wireframes and the designs for your website. So you've got all those clarity around the layout and what it's going to look like, so you're not making the design decisions, particularly as you're going through. And the second part of part B is that you've built up these assets. So I'm just going to run through that. Now, I might decide I'm going to do a search for football, and as I do a search for football, I might go to images, and then I might sit there inside images and think, here there are a bundle of images that I might want to use inside my website. So if I take them in no particular order, and I take that one and I right click and I choose Save Image As, and I'll drop it into my desktop, and on my desktop I will make a folder. Pause that one. On my desktop I will make a folder which we'll call Images. And you can see I've already put just a couple of pictures in there already. Now I would be calling these sensible names, maybe even referencing what page they're going to go on to, but I'm going to call this football image, not particularly inventive title. I might decide I want to use this one and use it as a logo, so save the image as. Again, it drops back onto my images. This time around I put in football logo. I might sit there and decide I want some other images that are down here. So I'm going to take that image, save the image as football kick. You can see I'm not giving a very good example of what to call things, but I am going to demonstrate how these then fit together and how we can use those. Save image as. Arsenal. Now, so then got a bundle of images sat there inside a folder ready for me to be able to use. Now, that's important because I'm going to want to have all those in one place when I build the website. What you don't want to be doing is faffing around and getting images from all over the place. So what you want to have done is built a single folder with all your images in. And if you want to, you might even go new and folder and create ones for, say, page 1. And then another folder for page 2 that's inside the images folder that's really broken down all these assets that you're going to use. And don't just think in terms of images, think in terms of text, think in terms of videos, think in terms of that range of materials that you might use when you're building something like this on your website. Now, having done that, our next step is to move into Dreamweaver itself. So usually you'll do a little search on your search bar and you'll click onto Dreamweaver. And when you've clicked onto Dreamweaver, it'll sit there for a minute and it'll hover and it'll bring up Dreamweaver itself. And when it brings up Dreamweaver, there are various ways in which you can make it. Now, I think the best way for this particular course and being able to take all the kind of usability stuff you need on this course is to make it using a method called Bootstrap. Bootstrap. So if you're looking for other videos on this, look for Bootstrap and Dreamweaver and it'll guide you through any of these other things. But hopefully I'm going to give you a one-stop shop that's going to tell you everything you're going to need. So I go to create new. It's a new HTML document. I'm into Bootstrap. I'm making a new Bootstrap document and I'm creating it new with a new CSS. Now the logic to that is you could create it using an existing one and try and match it to some existing CSS pattern that's on there. But part of this course is about you being able to make HTML documents which control what you see on the screen and CSS documents which control your colors and your layout and your fonts and everything else. So once you've built them with HTML, you can then apply a CSS document to it. We haven't got one yet. I'll show you how to make one. But once we've got a CSS document, you can add that to it and it controls all your color and everything else. And it stops you having to do it again and again and again for each of the particular examples. I would strongly not advise you to go down this route of starter templates and site templates and make your own from scratch. So once you've done that and you've pressed create, it says it's going to overwrite. Is that okay? So yeah, we're okay. And so we're now into a Bootstrap version. So in terms of the page you're seeing at the moment, on the bottom here, we've got a blank bit of HTML code, which by and large we won't touch. I say by and large because there are things like address bars when you put them in, where you've got to type the link into the HTML code. And there might be other bits of things as we go through where actually you do need to tweak the HTML code. But the aim is very much that the software will write the HTML code for you, and all you'll do on this top bit is write and draw in what you want to have here on your screen. So where I'm going to start is I'm going to go along to Insert, and on Insert at the top I'm going to go down to Bootstrap Components. Now we can use all the components that are on here, but the Bootstrap ones are a very good start point, a good help to begin with. And what I want to do is get you into the idea of building everything inside a series of kind of containers or boxes. And to start with, we're going to put in a fluid container. So it wants to swap then to a live view to cope with doing that, and we're perfectly fine with that. And it puts us in this blank box. Now at the moment, it's just an empty blank box, but it's a box that will allow you to resize your screen, and it'll create things like that kind of hamburger 3-line navigation menu in the top corner as you squeeze it in, and it'll do that automatically for you. So there's a real advantage to having that as a fluid box to begin with. So inside that fluid box, I might now sit there and begin to design my page. Now, I don't have the advantage that you'll have had, having done part B and designed a proper layout to your page. I'm coming at this almost inventing as I'm going along. So I'm going to start by putting in a second container. Now, I've done that deliberately because I know I want to put in a kind of a row, a navigation bar at the top. Now, on the side here, down the side, you can see it's created body, and it's created this fluid container that's there anyway. So that then as I go to that and throw in another container, it says, do you want to put it before it, after it, wrap it inside it, or nest it inside it? Now, generally speaking, you want to nest them inside the containers you've got. So you've got a container that's nested. Now, I'd said to you already that inside that container, I might want to go back to the main container now, and I might want to sit there inside that main container and add another container that is nested inside it as well. So now we've got two containers, one there and one there, that are both inside this overall container. So there's a main container, this top one here, the main container, and then inside it there are these two sub-containers. And inside this first sub-container, I want to put in a navigation bar. And so what I'm going to do is here again on Bootstrap Components, I'm going to go down to navigation, and I'm going to say I want to do a navigation bar that goes along the top that is nested inside that box. And it throws me in a navigation bar. Now, on the navigation bar itself, I can choose what I call it. Now, you'll notice this is one of those examples where we might end up writing little bits into the CSS. But it's given it a name there. So I want to call my website, say, Football Dreams. So I've put that there. I could have equally easily just typed it there. It doesn't matter at this stage whether I use the HTML at the bottom or I do it on the page at the top. Now on the top bit, it's now created for me 4 buttons. It's created one called Home, one called Link, both of which are fine, one called Drop Down, which I don't really want, and it's here in the HTML as well, and one called Disabled. Now, the real temptation is just to stop pressing delete and thinking that's going to get rid of it. But really, to get rid of it, what you're wanting to do is to choose it here on the right-hand side, right-click and choose delete. And that will get rid of those extra boxes. Now here again, I've got this disable box, which I don't want. So again, I go to the list item, not the actual words on the page, just the list item there, right-click and choose delete, and it's got rid of it again. And at this stage now, I've got just two, which are the two I kind of want. But I want to make, say, 3 or 4 pages, because the assignments tend to ask you to make 3, 4, 5 pages max. So to do that, what you do there is go, I want to duplicate that item. And then you could click on it again and say, I want to duplicate that item. And that would give me 4 links there across the top of the page. Now, as I click on each of those links, I can choose what they're called. So you could call it, on this first one, home. Why not? Leave it as home. On this second one, you could call it getting fit. Reason some people play football. The next one, you could call it tactics. All sorts of reasons why and how you might play football well. Now you'll notice on each of these, they're appearing in this bottom bit. So where it's saying link there, I could edit it there, or I can edit it at the top. I find it much easier to edit it in the design mode than to edit it in the HTML mode. I suspect you will as well. And then this last one is another page, and we've got getting fit, we've got tactics, and we might put in the benefits of playing the game. And so what that's given us then is a set of these individual boxes that will allow me to set it up. Now for each of those, I can put in where that hashtag is another web address to be able to say where that links. I'm not at that stage yet. I haven't made those pages. I'm not ready to put those links in. But what that's done is given me inside my first fluid container a navbar. So I've now closed that first fluid container because I'm quite happy with the navbar I've got. And let me just demonstrate something before I stop. If I move that page in, you'll notice it's made that hamburger bun automatically. So that's one of the features that the exam board are looking for as you make this website, and there it's making that feature for you. So you've got that feature as an automatic feature by building the navbar in this particular way. Don't worry about color at this stage. Don't worry about text at this stage. Don't worry about font at this stage. All that'll come in the CSS element. All we're worrying about now is content. So on this first one, as I said, I'm just going to close that because I've got that navbar, and I want to jump to that second box. Now, this second box is going to be my main page. So now I'm going to ask it to put in a grid row container, and I'm going to put it nested inside this box, and I'm going to have a set of, say, 4 columns. Now it will make those columns equally spaced across the page. Most of us don't want equally spaced columns, and so you can simply click on the column and make that column smaller. Make the 2 middle ones. I didn't quite get the box there, so you'll notice I've done it now with that one, so I need to pull that one back to where it was. So that one's a bit bigger, and again I make that one just that little bit bigger, and then this final one I'm going to make it smaller again. Now it might be that that's fine for your kind of basic layout where you've got something going on the side, you've got a main box, another main box, another thing going on the side. And it might be you want to build more of those that come after it. Now remember, this is in this fluid container. We've created this row of boxes. We've only got 2 containers at the moment inside the main container. We've got one that's got the navbar in, that top one. Then we've got this second one that's got my row in. Now, I could decide I want to put in another row there. So I could sit there and think I want to nest it, and I want to make this one now also 4 columns. And if I do that, it's going to put it in the same one, and it allows me then to shrink that one down, and it'll match up exactly. To expand that one out, it'll match up exactly. To expand that one out, it'll match up exactly. And to bring that one back so it just fits in that far corner. So that's allowing me to put things in the box. You could, if you wanted, create a separate box with the separate things, I would tend to stick to this kind of layout where you're putting things into boxes one after another. Now, again, if I go back, I've got these now 2 containers with 2 rows in. This one's got the navbar in, but it's not expanded, so the arrow's pointing to the right, whereas when it's pointing down, it's expanding. I can see what's in it. I've got these 2 rows in it. Now, I could click on back on the container and think I want to put in a final row. I want to put that one nested again, but this time I just want 2 columns because I'm going to put it at the bottom and have like a contact us type set of arrangements. And I'm perfectly happy with that, centered in the middle, nicely split up, etc. So that gives you the basics of setting up the layout of a page. Now at this point, I would save what you've done. So you're simply going to save as. You're making sure that it's going into a folder that you've identified, and I'm going to call this example 1. And it builds that as example 1, saves it as example 1, and I know it's telling me here that at the moment it's got these boxes with content goals here, and there's no content in them. So I could make this whatever I want at this stage. I could, if I wanted to, look on my insert and go to HTML and think, I want to put in there one of these kind of features of HTML. Yeah, but I suspect one of the things that most of you want to do is put text on the page, and the other thing you want to do is put images on the page. So images doesn't come under Bootstrap components. Bootstrap will allow you to make responsive images, it will allow you to put videos in, but if you want a straight, ordinary, normal image, you need to just go up to the HTML at that stage, and you can choose image. And just like before, what do we want to do with it? We want to nest it into this box. So where are our images? Well, our images are all sat here under images. And what image do I want? I'm going to start with the image that I first picked as we went in. Does it want to put it into the area? Yes. Make a new folder and rename it. Whatever rename is. Just double click on it slowly to rename it. And let's call that one images. And then double click on images. So we know it's going in images, and we're saving it there as an image as well. So we've got it. Now you'll notice it's kept that content goals here. I can delete that. And then I've got complete control over the image itself. So I can sit there with the image and think, how large do I want this particular image to be? That's the given size of this image. So if I want to make it bigger, you'll notice I'm clicking on that little 3-line thing there in the far corner, and I'm choosing the width. So I might sit there and think it's taking up about half the box, so I'm going to try it on 500, and I've kept that link together. And by keeping that link together, what that does is means it grows in the same size as itself. Now you might sit there and think, no, 500 is too big, so it's overrunning, so I'll take it down to 480. And it just gives you that chance to kind of experiment with the size of it. So you've got the size just how you want it. You're not controlling the size by you stretching it out, or you're doing it like you would in desktop publishing. You're controlling the size by controlling the size. Or you might decide, I'm not particularly fond of that. I want to make it 300, and it'll make it smaller. You can equally make it fit to a particular shape. So you could make it rounded, or you could make it curved at the corners, or you can make it just fit the box as normal. So it gives you all those kind of additionals as well. And here under the Alt, it allows you to put in a bit of text. So you might put girl kicking a ball. Now what that will do is mean that if someone's using a screen reader, because they're visually impaired in some way, it'll bring up that text, it'll tell them what that image is about. And then here you might want to put in something where you've researched your text, and you put in the game of football is one of the most popular sports in the world. And you can see I can just type that in straight as text. That goes where it wants to go. And I can put in more text, I can put in more pictures. But that, for a start off, gets you going on making your first page. So now you can see I've been busy adding a little bit of text to the website. I've kept the picture there. I've added this kind of football dreams element down the bottom here. So there's a bit of text there. And then I've put a follow us on. Now you can, of course, take text and you can bold it. You could see how I could sit there and choose, as I'd highlighted that there, bold or italic, or indeed make it a hyperlink to somewhere else, to another page. But I wanted to put followers on and then put two pictures in. So in my folder here, I've created a Facebook logo and I've created an X/Twitter logo. Now, if I put them in the following way, I'm going to have a slight issue. So I just wanted to make you aware of this, just so that you're clear in terms of how you're doing it. So I've gone on to insert, and I'll go on to HTML, and I think, well, I'm just going to put in two images side by side, Facebook logo, Twitter logo. And so I go, let's put in an image, let's nest it, so it's in this box. Let's put in the Facebook logo, let's press OK. Yes, we want to copy it across. We're going to put it into our images folder. We'll press on save, and then it's put it in. And you sat there thinking, well, okay, that's great. It's quite big. And so you might sit there and think, well, I want to make sure that the width of each one is 100. Yeah, no, that gives you a sense of, I've got the size right for each of them. You could even sit there and think, I'm going to make it circular. It kind of already is. But then when it comes to putting the one next to it, you've got a bit of an issue on your hands. So if I choose image nest again, and I put in a second image, this time the logo, and I press OK. Yes, I want it to go in. Yes, I want it to go into the images folder. Does it? Yes, I do want it to do. You can see it's now put it in next to it, but it's put it in right next to it, and I've got no real control over the size other than to sit there and do 100 there. Now, if you're doing that, you might be happy with that, but you might sit there and think, no, I want those more evenly spaced in that box. Now, if you're wanting to do that, you've got a slight difference to do. It's all within what we've been doing already, but I just wanted to alert you to how that's working. So, how's it working? Let's make sure we've got control of our containers. So I've closed the container with the nav box in it. Then we've got this container with all these other things in it. And as I click on this follow us, I'm here. Now, to take out those, right click, delete. Don't just delete them on the box itself. So I've got that element to things. Now you can see I've also changed the size of the page slightly. So it's created me a slight issue on the sizing. And I'm just going to need to just pull that across a bit so we get the box dropping just as we'd want it. Now, having done that, what would I do if I want control over the spacing? What I would do is go into my Bootstrap components again, put in a grid row, nested, go for 3 columns, one for the first logo, one for the second logo, one for the space. Then in here, highlight that text and simply then change that to the HTML component so I can pick up the image, and inside the image, nest it inside that box. What image do I want? I want the Facebook logo. Yes, I do. It's going to go into images. It'll moan about the fact it's already got that. We're not bothered. Rewrite it. It's fine. And of course, just like before, I'll change it to being size 100, because when it's size 100, that's nicely sized. So I've got that. Now, at that point, that's sat in that box. Now, I could have a box before it to move it along if I wanted. This middle box, I'm going to literally leave blank. And this next box, I can sit there again, choose my image, choose it nested, choose to put in my Twitter logo. Yes, I do. Yes, it needs to go in images. Yes, it's that one. Save it. Yes, I do want to replace it. And again, resize that back down to 100. Now, at that point, what I've got are the two logos with the space nicely fitting in that box. Now, clearly, on some of these other ones, you might get to the point where you think, actually, I wanted those two to be together. Usually it's better just to increase the size and decrease the size and just play around with the sizing of the box to do that. But you can see how that's a useful little feature about being able to add a space or a structure inside the box itself so that you've got slightly more control of what's there. If you find you've got a situation like that where you've got a P that you don't really want, you can simply right click on it and delete it and it'll take it out. If you find like I've just done there that you've deleted too much, Control Z just puts it back in. So it's allowing you that control over the row. Now similarly, you can move things around in terms of boxes as well. So there we've got the P with the strong on it that we want going just before the row. And there you've got that control over the box itself, over how the box is done. You exercise that control here in the domain. Don't try and do it by editing it on the page.